Let's make Nigerian puff puff. Today we are going to make puff puff, which is kind of like a donut hole. And so it's a fried dough ball that is very popular in Nigeria. And we're going to start by proofing our yeast. So yeast is the thing inside the dough that's going to make it rise and be fluffy. And so we have to activate that. And we'll do that by putting it in a little bit of warm water with some sugar. So you're going to start by mixing together half a cup of warm water, 1 teaspoon of sugar, 2 teaspoons of yeast, and we're going to mix it inside this smaller bowl, and we're going to let it sit for about 10 minutes until it starts to get nice and bubbly and rise up. Okay, so we're going to start with our half cup of warm water. It should be warm, kind of like bath water. We're going to pour that in our small bowl. And then we're going to take 1 teaspoon of sugar, and we're going to put that in our small bowl with our water. And then we're going to take our yeast. Now yours might come in a bag like this, or it might come in small packets, but either one is fine. And you're going to measure out 2 teaspoons of yeast into our small bowl. You can see I'm adding it here with my sugar and my warm water. And then I'm just going to take a small spoon and I'm going to stir. I want it to kind of dissolve a little bit so that it'll get nice and creamy. So now that we've got this all nice and mixed together, we're going to put it over here on the counter and wait for 10 minutes while that proofs. And while we're waiting, we're going to start mixing together our dry ingredients. So we're going to get 2 cups of flour, 1 cup, two cups, 2 cups of flour. We're going to take some nutmeg, and we're going to take 1 teaspoon of nutmeg. So we get our teaspoon measure again, and we get 1 teaspoon of nutmeg. And then we just need just a pinch of salt. We need about 1/8 of a teaspoon. If you don't have 1/8 of a teaspoon, you can do 1/2 of a 1/4 teaspoon, or you can just kind of pinch some with your fingers. So I don't have 1/8 of a teaspoon, so I'm just going to use 1/2 of my 1/4 teaspoon. Then I'm also going to add a 1/4 cup of sugar, and I pour that in. And I mix it until all the seasonings and everything are mixed around nicely. And once that's done, I'm going to create a little well in the center. It's kind of like making a little hole. You see my little well there? And that's where I'm going to pour the yeast mixture and the extra water when I'm ready. All right, so let's wait for our yeast to finish proofing, and then we'll come back and do the next step. So we're now going to take our yeast mixture, which has bubbled up, and we're going to give it a little stir to kind of mix it together, and we're going to pour it into that well that we made in the middle of our flour. So you can see we've got it poured right there in the middle of our flour where we made that little well. And we're also going to add 1 more cup of warm water. So I pour my remaining warm water in with the yeast right into the little well. And then I'm going to start mixing. To make sure that we've washed our hands well, we're going to use some soap. And then we're going to put a little bit of water on our hands, and we're going to scrub it and scrub in your fingernails. And then we're going to sing, "Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are." And that's how we know our hands are really clean. Now, I've washed my hands, I've dried them off, so now I can use them to get out any lumps that are still inside my dough. So I just mix it with my hands, squeezing it until I get all the lumps out and it's nice and smooth. If you don't want to use your hand, you can use a mixer. Just be sure you don't mix it too long or it'll get tough. I'm really going to scoop around the edges, make sure I get all the flour worked into it. This is the fun part. Now that it's all nice and smooth, I'm going to make sure that all my batter stays in the bowl. and then I'm gonna go wash my hands again. Now remember how we had to activate or proof the yeast before we started and it got all bubbly and it kind of rose up in the bowl? Well, we want the yeast to do the same thing in our batter. In about 1 hour, this should be twice as big as it is now. So once it has doubled in size, then you'll know that it's ready for frying. So I'll see you in an hour. Well, we had a little camera issue, so we didn't get the batter as it was all puffed up, but you can see how high up on the bowl our batter came. All right, now that our dough is ready to fry, we're gonna heat up some oil either in a deep fryer or in a frying pan with a thick bottom, and then we are going to start frying the dough. We're gonna take our spoon and we're gonna scoop out some of the batter, and we're gonna push it off the spoon and try and keep it in a ball shape if you can. Scoop it up on our spoon, push it off with our finger into the hot oil that you've heated up in your pan. It'll take some practice to be able to get nice round shapes, but just kind of push it off into a little ball into the oil. You can see we've got all our little puffs in there. A lot of cultures have something like this. In America, we have something called a donut hole. In Italy, they have zeppelis. In France, they have beignets. In East Africa, they have mandazi. And it's all very similar. It's a sweet dough that is fried in hot oil. So once they start to get a little bit brown, you're going to turn them over so they can cook on the other side. And then once they're brown on the other side, you can take them out and put them on your plate. You can have a paper towel or a napkin underneath to help soak up the extra oil. And now your plate of puff puff is ready to eat. If you like it a little sweeter, you can sprinkle it with icing sugar, regular sugar, or cinnamon sugar for an extra special treat. Enjoy!